Hi, I'm Corey Ercanbrack, the Chief Product and Technology Officer here at Vasion. I have with me Greg Smith, who's a Principal Architect at Vasion. Hi, Greg. Welcome.
Hey, Corey. Thanks for having me on.
For sure. Today, we're here to talk a little bit about security and how security is top of mind for everybody out there. As I was thinking about this conversation that we're having today, I was thinking that maybe we should talk about the PrintNightmare vulnerability. And I wondered a little bit about how headline is that anymore? I mean, it was discovered about a year ago, right, Greg? And Microsoft has since come out with patches. And I know a lot of companies have applied those patches and feel like they're much more secure today. But I realized, like with a bulletin that was issued just last week, that it's still a very serious problem. And that bulletin was issued by the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. It was a joint bulletin that was issued and a warning about an attack that just like recently happened, just in the last couple of weeks. And the attack was all around penetrating the default MFA configuration and leveraging the Windows print spool vulnerability known as PrintNightmare, right? So let's talk a little bit about those attacks, Greg, and let's first talk a little bit about MFA. Like, what was it, and how do we at Vasion help customers ensure that that can't happen, right? So let's talk a little bit about that.
Cool. Yeah. So basically, what happened is the organizations had a default policy where if MFA was not reachable, it would just allow somebody through. So what ended up occurring is that this attack, they were able to successfully redirect that MFA check locally to where it wouldn't resolve back to the MFA vendor. And so what that effectively did is disabled all MFA security for the organization. Obviously you need to, one of the recommendations in the bulletin is to make sure that that failover default is not set, right? Like, so you have to pass multi-factor authentication successfully in order to be authorized and fully authenticated to access your application. Where that really fits in nicely with what we're doing here at Vasion with PrinterLogic is we integrate very nicely with all of those identity providers that people are using, whether it's Azure AD or Okta or any other SAML or OIDC provider. Whatever security controls you have in place using that provider will be automatically enabled for PrinterLogic. So we just ingest that natively.
That's fantastic, right? So what that does for you as customers is if you configure and you enable and you're leveraging one of those cloud-based user identity management platform over SAML, and then from a provisioning perspective, either using SCIM or OIDC, all of a sudden, like we're just in part of your security model. Like, we're just there, our application adheres to that security, and so we can protect against that exact vulnerability, right? So let's step into the PrintNightmare thing, because that was also leveraged in this particular attack. There's been a lot of news about PrintNightmare, and a lot of people have panicked and had to worry about printing on that. So Greg, take a minute and tell us a little bit about, like, what is that PrintNightmare vulnerability and how have we protected against it from a Vasion perspective?
Yeah, the PrintNightmare vulnerability really was quite a nightmare. And it all centers around a technology from Microsoft that's been around for a long time called point and print. And so the basic premise of this technology is that using a Windows computer, you open up a file explorer window, you navigate to a print server, and you just double click on the printer that you want to install. And point and print in the background will silently deliver the drivers and all of the stuff that's needed to allow your computer to successfully submit a print job through that print server so it can come out on a printer. That mechanism of driver delivery is what the PrintNightmare vulnerability is all about. And it's through a series of remote procedure calls that's integrated in the print spooler of a print server. So from PrinterLogic's standpoint, it's a great conversation to have because we don't even use that technology to deploy drivers. Instead, what we do, because our mantra is eliminating those print servers, eliminating these vulnerabilities altogether, the way that we deliver drivers is securely over a TLS connection to your printer cloud instance, whether that's your SaaS instance or whether that's a virtual appliance. And we're only going to deliver the drivers that an authorized administrator, just like we just talked about, that multi-factor authentication and all of the IDP integration that we have. We're only going to deploy those drivers that authorized administrators have uploaded to your admin console. We've got that client agent that runs on the workstation. They retrieve those drivers directly from PrinterLogic and install them there locally. So the entire point and print vulnerability that is PrintNightmare is completely avoided.
It's incredible to me, Greg, that for a decade now, we've known that it's important to eliminate infrastructure like print servers in order to reduce attack vectors, right? And it's just incredible that customers who have engaged with us and have our solution in place, they haven't stressed at all about this vulnerability. In fact, they've just like they totally just put it on the side burner, and they haven't had to spend any time focusing on it. And it's all about the way that we have the ability to eliminate that infrastructure, reduce that attack vector, and in the technologies that we've developed, in the way that we are securely managing their printing environment, has really proven to be very powerful for them.